Hello, all participants out there of the webinar. We're very excited to start the program. My counter says there are a few more of you to join us. So I'm just talking till time for a moment so people will not go, this is strange. There's 6 people on a screen and no one is talking. Is it me? Is it Memorex, or what's the issue? So we'll do another minute or so, and then we will start the process. Okay, I'm officially starting the process. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alan Esrock, and welcome to our Family Business Center webinar series. Family Business Centers provide educational support and create community for family businesses in their local market. We think every family business should belong to a family business center, but that's not reality. So we decided at NxtGen Nexus to figure out what we're going to do about this. So we're creating the NxtGen Nexus Big Bang to champion family business and create a local, global community for the next generation of family business owners. A couple months ago, I was reading about the Kentucky Derby in what's left of the LA Times sports page. Now, I saw the movie Seabiscuit, so I knew that family businesses were an important part of the industry. I quickly discovered that basically everyone was from a family business. And of course, that's not counting the horses, because despite the glory of winning the Kentucky Derby, it's the stud fees that power the industry. Galileo, one of the greatest sires in history, generated 40 million pounds per year in stud fees. And that's a lot of studding. So I'm having this great idea. I'm really excited, and I haven't a clue how to make this happen. So I was talking to Jill about my dilemma, and she said, oh, you know, my father is a nationally known trainer. And I said to her, you know, my dad swam the English Channel backwards. So basically, one of us was lying. Fortunately, it was me. So I want to thank Jill, thank all of our panelists, and say we're off.
We're off to the races. Thank you, Alan. I'm Jill Hofmans. I'm the Executive Director of the Conway Center for Family Business in Columbus, Ohio. But as Alan said, my dad is David Hofmans. He is a trainer on the Southern California circuit, and I see Dad is on the call. Hi, Poppy. We tried to get him here with us today, but he refused. So he's on our naughty list. The reason I'm excited to do this is because I grew up in a family business, which was my dad's. My brother worked for him. My grandpa worked for him. He basically kept his father alive for many years after his retirement. Do you remember Butchie, Chris? Would just come to the track and pick up screws and try to kill flies and was just a menace. My cousin has worked for him. So I would go with my dad. Really, I'd go with my dad to work so I could see him. So the racing industry, you're up at 4 in.the morning, you're doing morning workouts, until about 10 o'clock, come home for a nap, a shower, if you even come home, because then you're back for the first race. Often post time is noon or 1 o'clock. So I would go to work with Dad so I could see him. And I would go for the donuts and the goats and having quesadillas in the tack room with the grooms. Sometimes they put me to work, but I'm excited today for our guests because they have all different types of ways that they've been actually working and involved at the track. I never worked there. I just, again, went for the food and the camaraderie. So it's my pleasure today to tell you we have Jeff Metz, Superintendent of Stalls at Santa Anita, his 28-year-old daughter, Zoe. And I say that because you look like a baby. And when they hear that you're an assistant trainer and a renowned equine photographer, they won't believe me if they don't know you're almost 30. We have the inimitable Chris McCarron, 2-time Eclipse winning and Hall of Fame jockey, also in the movie Seabiscuit. We're going to talk to him a little bit later on. And also Ellen Patrick, who is the leading female handicapper in the United States. And we'll learn all about that, what that means. And she will give us some tips for the Kentucky Oaks and the Derby. But first, we're going to start with the Metz family. So I'm going to ask Ellen and Chris to take off and make sure you mute yourselves so we don't hear you in the background. And we're going to talk with Zoe and with Jeff. So Jeff, first of all, tell me, what is a superintendent of stalls?
So basically my job is when the trainers first come to the track, maybe they came back from Del Mar and they have to get their stable put together. So I assign the stalls, the tack rooms, the dorm rooms, stuff like that. But then the day-to-day operations, there's always things that need fixed, boards, leaky faucets, broken pipes, stuff like that. So I definitely, there's always something going on. So, and then facilitate the racing office to make sure the races are flowing and everything's going good. We just recently had the Breeders' Cup this fall, so that was quite an undertaking, but a good challenge. And I got to meet a lot of people, so so that was good. So basically, I want to make sure all the trainers are happy and have what they need to be able to take care of their horses and train, and then make sure the racing secretary, we work together if new people want to come and be stabled at Santa Anita. So we make sure we put those puzzle pieces together and fit in as many trainers and horses as we can on the facilities here at Santa Anita.
And so that can be a little political, because I know sometimes trainers want their same barn, or they want a better barn location, or how do you deal with that?
So definitely, I try to get people to work together. I try to let them understand that, you know, you might need to borrow a couple stalls from your neighbor, because down the road, they might need to borrow some stalls from you and vice versa. So sometimes they know each other and they work together, and that's fine. Sometimes they don't know each other. So I'm kind of the mediator, and I kind of say, hey, can this trainer borrow a couple stalls? They have some coming in and I see you have empties. And then the same thing, you know, so they can give and take. But other times I have to go finding stalls, and they might be in another barn, but as they grow. But then sometimes we just get to that limit, and unfortunately you have to say no. And then they have to either be at Los Alamitos or San Luis Rey. Some guys will send horses to the farms, Golden Gate, but our overflow when Del Mar's not open is Los Alamitos and San Luis Rey Downs.
And then they ship in from that.
Correct.
Yeah, that's got to be hard. And you're a trainer as well, so you.
Yeah, so I basically kind of stopped training when this job came about. So it was in September of last year, and that's when Zoe took over the reins of the barn. And you know, she was my assistant for 3 to 4 years, but she's grown up around it her whole life. So really, you know, she rides the pony, she's exercised the horses before, and she's got a great feel for horses. So she knows when they're feeling good, when they're sharp and happy, and also when they're a little quiet and maybe didn't eat. And then, you know, always checking the legs and checking the feed tub. So she's grown up around it. She's got a feel for it. And then that photographic eye, you know, you always want them to look good.
Right. So I forgot to mention to our viewers, if you have questions, put them in the chat or the Q&A. Alan's going to field those. He's going to interrupt us if you have a question, you don't understand a term. We have all been in the industry forever, so we may be saying things you don't understand. Please, we're happy to clarify any of that. Jeff, real quick, I want to start with you, your own family-owned business story, because you grew up in this. You trained for your parents. Your kids are in the industry. Your wife is in the industry. Talk about that for a minute and how that's been for you.
Yeah, when I was growing up, my mom and dad owned horses, and we were in Northern California. For the first 5 years until I was 5, we lived in Oakland, California. So we were close to Bay Meadows and Golden Gate. And then we moved to a town called Fremont, and I lived there until I was 21. But during that time, my parents owned horses, and I was lucky enough to go out to the farms and see the babies. But it wasn't until one summer when I was 14 that I actually got excited. We had a summer trip to Del Mar, and I'm like, wow, I want to learn to do this and learn to ride horses. So I went to a stable for a couple of years and rode 100 jumpers and got to learn that. And then luckily, when I was 16, I met somebody that helped me become an exercise rider at Pleasanton. So I started off in Pleasanton, and then, yeah, when I was about 18, 19, I had some horses for my mom and dad, training them and getting my feet wet as a trainer. And then when I was 21, I moved down to Santa Anita to go to college, and been at Santa Anita ever since. So that was 36 years ago. So, yeah. So my parents, when my dad retired from his job, he actually was worked on the stable gate. My mom was the paymaster of purses at Del Mar, and Santa Anita. So she was the assistant paymasters. And then my wife, who works as a clocker, we met because we were both galloping in the same barn. We were working for Bruce Headley at the time, and Chris McCarron was riding a lot of horses and a lot of winners for Bruce Headley. So so we met there and got married right across the street from Santa Anita on Kentucky Derby Day.
No way. That's
1991.
No way.
So my wife transitioned from exercise rider to clocking. So she times the morning workouts.
Right.
And then she also really, probably about the last 10 years, she's worked as a camera operator. So she films when they're loading in the starting gate, and she really enjoys that. So yeah, to say the family's involved, as well as my son, who's an exercise rider. He rides for Zoe, as well as in the past, he's ridden for Bob Baffert and John Sadler. So yeah, definitely, all 4 of our cars are at Santa Anita.
So what do you enjoy the most about working with your family in the business?
It's it can be difficult when the kids were younger and they have their own opinions. It can be a little fight. So you have to really try to finesse as much as possible. So you want to teach them, but you want them to stand on their own too. So you want to, it's that fine line of give and take. So there's times when everybody wants to be the boss and wants their opinion to be done, but sometimes you just got to give and take. And when you're both on the same page, that's when it's really golden. And then obviously when things are successful, then we all get to share in it. And those are memories that you can carry for a long time.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing space back there on the backside. All the families that are there, from grooms have their families
and
there.
I think Zoe will tell you, she's at the races doing the photography, but one of the things I really enjoy the mornings and watching the morning training. And I think Zoe is similar, that she really likes the behind the scenes and working with the horses. And, sometimes the horses, they don't talk back. They just are there. And the owners and the jockeys and the agents.
The owners talk back.
Yes, exactly. So sometimes it's just nice to go to the barn in the afternoon or after they fed in the morning. It's all quiet. You're just there with the horses. And it can be a special place for sure.
Did you always want your kids to be in the business with you? Was that encouraged, or did that just happen?
That's a funny story, because I played a lot of sports when I was growing up, and then I kind of stopped when I started riding horses. So I was just dying. Oh, I can't wait till they play baseball and basketball. And then they got old enough to play, and they really weren't that excited about that. So my daughter took to the horses right away. She really enjoyed the horses. My wife had pony rides, so we had ponies around. We had horses that were pony horses and retired horses. But and my son took a little while. He was like me. It wasn't until around 14, 15, then all of a sudden he got interested, because we always felt like the odd man out, because the 3 of us would be at the track and the horses, and he really wasn't that interested. But so yeah, definitely my wife and I definitely didn't push or feel like, oh, I hope they go to the track. But I think it definitely is, from watching like Zoe's friends at school and stuff, it's such a different world. Kids on the track and the responsibility that they have versus kids that are kind of in high school and just not a care in the world. So both are good, but horses can be tough, as you know. Your dad was a trainer, so the highs and lows, the ups and downs. I mean, one minute you're winning big stakes, and the next minute your horse is injured. So it can be the highs of the highs and the lows of the lows. So do you want them to? Yeah, I guess you do at the end of the day.
Yeah, you do. And you want them there with you. No, I get it. Again, that's why I would go, so I could see my dad. And I swear, every horse I fell in love with ended up being a claimer or broke down. It was the worst. I'd go, and then next week and they'd be gone. It was horrible.
I'm just lucky our backyard is full. We have half an acre. If we weren't full, Zoe would be rescuing and retiring more horses. So I'm glad we're full at the moment.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I want to move on to Zoe. So Zoe, I would go in the mornings and the afternoons, but I never worked there. I was terrified of horses. At 4 years old, I was stepped on a horse was backing out of one of the big bathtubs I used to have, and I crossed behind him and he stepped, and I was so
Oh yeah.
I've been terrified of horses. So I never worked there. My sister worked in the racing office. My brother, worked for my dad and now was a trainer and is now a farm manager in Kentucky. But for you, so you would go with your parents to work all the time, or what was how did that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I used to always go to work with my dad on the weekends, and I would hang out with the horses and do as much as I could around the barn and kind of learn even at a very young age. And then when I was about 12 or 13, I took this picture of Zenyatta when she was coming back after one of her stakes wins, and it was one that actually ended up in the Santa Anita calendar the following year. So
Awesome.
then that was kind of where my photography kind of took off. So I kind of, the barn side of things kind of was put on the back burner for me as far as that kind of stuff, and photography really became huge for me. I've got to travel pretty much everywhere for all the big races. I've shot the Kentucky Derby, I've shot the Preakness, I've shot the Belmont Stakes. I was there when American Pharoah won, I was there when Justify won. I've shot numerous Breeders' Cups, Pegasus World Cups. I've been to a lot of different tracks doing that kind of stuff. But as like my dad said, then I drew myself back to the horses. As much as I do love taking pictures, I mean, I'm still a photographer every race day and stuff like that. Horses was always what I got called back to in the backside and stuff. So for about the last 5, 6, even probably 7 years, I've gone back and forth working for my dad most steadily the last about 4 years. So I'm back there and I take care of the horses, and I mean, they're my life, they're my best friends. And like my dad mentioned,
Right.
I do ride the pony. And there was a point in time where I was getting on a couple horses, and as much as I love riding the race horses, it's also a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And not saying I didn't trust myself, but I feel much safer or much more confident either being on the pony or on foot. But the horses I did get to ride, they meant the world to me.
So you never were scared of them like me. You're not afraid of them. Okay, that's
No.
good. It would be terrible to be in that job and be terrified of them. What did you like about being in the family business working with your family? What do you like about it? Or what brings you the most joy with that?
I mean, kind of like what my dad said, like when we all get to, like when a horse wins and you're all there and you all get to come together, and it's just, we're all excited. And especially with my brother riding the horses for me in the morning, when a horse runs really good, it's just extra special because as a brother and sister, it's like, oh, this is what we did. Our hard work did this. Like, this is like all this hard work and dedication that we put into this. Like, this is what came from it. And it just feels really good to know that it's all within the family.
So someone asked a question if all the family business dynamics at the racetrack are happy memories like this, like I had, like you have, or were there challenges and personalities? And I can tell you my dad and my brother had lots of challenges of personalities. My brother has a big problem with authority, and working for his dad was a blessing and a curse, right? Because he could be kind of a jerk to his dad because he's not going to get fired. But it's not all roses and rainbows being a family business at the racetrack. It's the same, I would say. I'm thinking about all the other family businesses I work for. It's the same thing. You get to go to work with the people you love the most and with the people who drive you the most crazy. So when those two intersect, those dynamics are challenging. But at the racetrack, it's sort of a little microcosm of society, and you see it all play out. But yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be.
I think one of the quick things I'll interject is, I think when you have the business and you speak about the families, whether it's racehorses or what else, I think there's nobody you trust more than your family.
Right.
You know they're gonna show up and be there for you and have your back. I'm sure there's bad stories that things happened or money was taken, but for the most part, somebody that is no relation to you, they could just blow you off or not show up. But for the most part, your family is going to bend over backwards for you.
And that's true in all family businesses. But I'm also thinking at the racetrack. So John Sadler was my dad's assistant trainer. He used to babysit us. So it was like this whole, also this family, dynamic going on. So Zoe, for you, I know back in the day when I was hanging out there 30 years ago, there were not a lot of women on the backstretch. And it's often hard for women in a male-dominated industry. Marge Everett owned Hollywood Park. At the time when I was growing up, she was a very strong woman. She was really the only female role model that I would see. There were a couple exercise riders, but for you, I'm hoping in the last 30 years that has changed. And you have your mom who worked at the track and continues to work at the track. Is it a challenge for you being in this male-dominated industry? And do you have female role models and mentors that you can work with?
I mean, I definitely think it's still hard, but over even just like the last 10 years, more and more women are making names for themselves throughout horse racing. I mean, three that come to mind. One of my really good friends, Amelia Green, she's actually one of the assistant trainers for Todd Fletcher, who is eventually going to go out on her own. She's worked for tons of trainers. She came from England. She worked for Henry Cecil over there, and then she came here and she's worked for numerous trainers, and then now she's worked for Todd for about the last 4 years, and she's galloped some of Todd's best horses in the last 4 years. She's one I admire so much. Another one, Kristen Mulhall, who I don't know if you know her, but she's also one of my good friends, and she's taught me a lot as a horsewoman and that kind of stuff. I mean, she's one that she had a horse, Imperialism, go to the Derby, and she galloped the horse herself. So not only was she the gallop person, but she was also the trainer. I mean, the horse ran third in the Kentucky Derby. That's pretty awesome for a female to say. Yeah. And then probably the third one that's she's definitely become the most popular in the last year is Jenna Antonucci, who won the Belmont Stakes last year. So, and when she got to come to Santa Anita and prep her horse for the Breeders' Cup, unfortunately her horse didn't run. But to see her and talk to her and just to see her confidence that she has, it's really nice to see that even in a male-dominated sport that she just stood by everything that she wanted and she said, and she's really good at what she does, but it was nice to see such a strong, confident woman. It makes you just think that, oh, I can do that too if I work hard.
Jeff, how was it for you knowing that Zoe was going to be in this very testosterone laden environment?
Zoe's it's funny. She's a really strong person. She's very quiet on the outside, but inside she's very driven and very strong. So if she puts her mind to something, I know she's gonna come through with it. I felt that even though she might quietly make her way through, I thought she'd hold her own and be able to, stand up in these male-dominated type situations. The other thing that your dad will attest to is everybody watched Zoe grow up on the track. So everybody knows her. They've seen her for a while. And like you said, they probably think she's younger than she is. But then they're like, wow, you've been around for a while. But they saw her when she was, very young. Mm-hmm. So I feel she can hold her own because she's confident in her abilities with the horses. And I think at the end of the day, that's what really counts is knowing your horses and knowing what you want to accomplish with your horses.
Right. Jeff, a question came in about, are there any new families coming in as trainers or owners? I know there's been a big shift in the ownership that I've noticed, but lots of consignment and conglomerations. But do you feel like there's constantly new blood coming in, or these legacy families? You've been at the track for 36 years. My dad's been, on my birth certificate, it said he was a groom. So I'm 55. He's been there a long time,
Yeah, there's a few new players coming in across the country. Some of them, you have Elliot Walden's son is training now. You have Taylor Made with a lot of family members in that business with the sales. You have Mick and Shelby Ruiz, which are a family business. And so there are some in the racing game, but just a small amount.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to have you now take a pause. We're going to ask Chris McCarron to join us. Oh, he's going to be turning his video back on, hopefully. If not, oh, there he is. Yay.
Yep.
The one and only Mr. Chris McCarron. We are thrilled to have you here with us today, Chris. Just thrilled. So let's continue talking family business. How did a kid in Boston become a two-time Eclipse Awards winner, Hall of Fame jockey, in a movie in Hollywood, in the Hall of Fame, just the most prolific and one of the most well-respected jockeys in the world? How did you get here, Chris?
Well, thank you, Jill, for those kind words. I surely appreciate it. Well, I have an older brother, Greg. Greg is like 6.5 years older than I am. And it was just by chance. I believe in fate, and fate happened to us. It turned out that we both have an ability to communicate with horses, and we were both able to capitalize on those God-given talents. And in 1969, I was a freshman in high school, and Greg had just started his career at Suffolk Downs in Boston, East Boston. And it wasn't the first year that he was riding, but I would say it was at least the second year in 1970, when I got out of school at 3 o'clock. There was a train station located right at Suffolk Downs, and it was only 3 stops from where my school is in the North End. I'd get out of school 3 o'clock, get on the train, go to Suffolk. I'd have to sneak in. I'd climb a fence, because back then, if you were under 18, you had to have an adult accompany you. So I would sneak in and watch Greg ride the last 3 or 4 races, and it looked really, really exciting to me. I would actually do my homework in between races, waiting for Greg to come back out on the track.
That's great.
Yeah, I couldn't make my way over to the jockey's room and all that area over there, because while I was I was probably 15 years old at the time, and like Zoe, I can't believe Zoe's 28 years old. My God, she must get carded all the time. She's going to get carded until she's 60, the way she looks right now.
I know,
But
right?
anyway, I had to kind of find my own private spot and watch the races. And then between my junior and senior year in high school in 1971, Greg got me a job as a hot walker up in Salem, New Hampshire at Rockingham Park. And I fell in love with it. I walked horses for 2 months, and it started out with a like, it turned into infatuation, turned into love. So as soon as I graduated in 1972, the very next day I was on the racetrack, and I've been there ever since. So funny story. Well, I'll start off with a kind of a tough story, but Greg had only been on the job for like 2 months. And he was a hot walker working for a guy named Odie Cleland, who taught us both how to ride. Well, Greg suffered an accident. He was kicked right square in the face.
Oh.
And it broke his orbital bone, knocked his eye in the back of his head. And, he was in the hospital. I don't know, it seemed like a month or so. I can't remember exactly, but he was in the hospital for quite some time. And so my parents, who were not crazy about Greg wanting to get into the world of horse racing, because they didn't want us to be involved with a bunch of derelicts and degenerates.
Yeah.
Like Ellen that we have on here.
Right. Derelict Ellen.
So anyway, he survived, and as soon as he was well enough, he was back at the track and showed a tremendous amount of courage. So now fast forward to 1971, the last few days that I was there before I had to go back to school, Odie asked me to. And I had ridden the pony all summer long. I would cool the horses out after their workouts and after racing by riding the pony. Odie wanted me to get as much saddle time as possible. So that was my first experience of riding a horse. And there were no horses around where we grew up. I wanted to be a hockey player, but I was too small and I wasn't very good at it. So anyway, So they gave me a leg up on this filly. I'll never forget her name. Her name was You Picked a Beauty. And she was owned by Peter Fuller of Dancer's Image fame. He won the Derby in 1968, only to be disqualified because of a high medication positive. Anyway, so this filly was the kindest thing in the barn. And I got a leg up and I just kind of froze. And Odie says, get off her, boy, get off her. He saw the fear in my face. And all I could remember was Greg getting kicked in the face, because that's how it happened with him. He had never been given a leg up before. The groom gave him a leg up. The colt took one step forward and Greg landed behind the saddle. He got bucked off and then kicked in the face. So I couldn't get that out of my mind when I it was my first chance to get on a thoroughbred. And so, and Greg happened to be there that morning, and he went to the payphone in the barn and called home and said, Mom, Dad, you won't have to worry about Chris being a jockey. He's too scared. Which was
funny.
Yeah. So anyway, I learned how to gallop babies down in South Carolina at the farm that my boss owned. And that was in January of 1973. And 12 months later, I rode my first race on January 24th, 1974. I broke my maiden on February 10th, on February 9th on my 10th mount.
Wow.
And then by the end of the year, I had 546 victories.
Which is why you were the Eclipse Award winner as an apprentice jockey. That's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah,
Sandy Hawley, who was a dear friend of mine, he broke Shoemaker's record, which had stood for 25 years of 485 wins. And Sandy broke Shoe's record at Laurel Racecourse, where I was working.
Yeah.
And I was in the crowd behind the winner's circle. And I know I just witnessed history in the making. Sandy rode 486. He went on to win 515, but he won 486. So I'm behind. I'm going to stand up for a second. I'm behind the winner's circle, and I'm holding on to my friend's shoulders, and I'm leaping up in the air. Zoe will get a kick out of that. I'm trying to get my ugly mug in the picture.
Right.
I wanted to be in the photo.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out.
That's the original photo bomber. It's Chris McCarron.
That's right. I was a photo bomber when I was 18 years old. And so anyway, that was a very, very exciting moment. And it was even more exciting the following year when I got in the picture, but I was on the horse's back.
You were on the horse itself. That is amazing. Alan's now going to show a clip of your 1987 Derby win on Ali Sheba. And we're going to talk about it when it's done. You're going to put that up, Alan? Here we go. There's no sound, Alan, but Chris can tell us what's happening. It's a terrible image too, though.
Well, at this point, they're going very slowly.
Yes. The Derby in 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
So you're heading into the final turn here.
I'm fourth right now.
You're fourth.
On the outside.
Okay.
Coming with the blue and white colors.
Yeah.
The horse that's in front is a horse called Bet Twice.
Yeah. Here you're going to go down.
Right here, he's going to duck out under left-handed urging. Whoop. And Ali Sheba stumbled right there.
Yep.
Too bad the video's not very good.
I know.
But
then you go on, and the announcer at the time is saying, "Oh, and Ali Sheba dropping back," and then you go on to win it. And it's because the announcer saw you him drop to his knees, and I don't think most people saw that in real time. So how scary was that?
in real time, it wasn't scary. Really, the only thought went through my head was, don't fall now. We don't have one horse to go by.
Right.
And so he demonstrated what a great athlete he was. He was very agile, nimble, and fast, and very courageous. And so, it was a thrill of a lifetime getting my first win there. It was unreal.
That is, what does that feel like? So for everybody on the call, most people think, and most people in general think, the Kentucky Derby is like the most greatest important race of all time. And it is to a certain extent, but in the industry, we more think of Breeders' Cup races, right, as being more important to the industry.
No, not
You don't
really.
think so? Okay, I
No.
hear conflicting opinions on that.
Yeah, the Breeders' Cup is certainly our year-end championship. You know, there's a lot of the winners of the Breeders' Cup races go on to win Eclipse Awards. It's not guaranteed, but they usually do. But there's really only one big kahuna, and that is the Run for the Roses.
It holds a special place in all of our hearts. So what did that feel like? You must remember the rush of, I mean, all the adrenaline from almost, toppling to winning.
Yeah, it's almost indescribable. One of the most vivid memories I have after Jim McKay and everybody concluded the interviews up on the winner's podium, I was escorted across the track and through the crowd to the press elevator where I had to go up and address the media and answer questions from the press corps. And so we're going directly through the crowd. And, I still have my colors on, my helmet, and I had this big bodyguard in front of me. He told me to grab his belt, hold on to his waist belt, and I had a cop on each side of me and one behind. So there's 4 people escorting me through this crowd, and we got to the elevator, and they basically told everybody get off the elevator. So there was just 4 of us plus the elevator operator, and I felt like a rock star. I felt like a rock star after the concert trying to get back to my bus.
Right. That's
Yeah.
fun. I remember when Dad was at the Derby and the just crush of cameras. And I have a picture of him and all these cameras just in his face. I mean, the scrutiny is unbelievable at these really high level races. And so that wasn't your only rodeo. I mean, you have ridden some of the most important races and horses in racing history. So did you ever get used to feeling like a rock star?
No, I don't think I'd ever want to get used to it. But because each and every time, including when we won, your dad and I won the Breeders' Cup Classic up in Toronto at Woodbine in 1996 with that wonderful gray horse Alphabet Soup.
Alphabet Soup.
I'll take the opportunity now to mention that your dad is one of the finest horsemen I ever rode for. He's a real caregiver. He takes such wonderful care of his animals, and I was always had the utmost confidence in Dave sending out a horse that was fit and sound, and it was always a pleasure to ride for him. We had a lot of luck together. I guarantee you our percentage is pretty high. It's got to be up close to 25%, I would think, over the years. Yeah.
I can imagine.
We made a good combo. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, he's listening. He knows you. You afforded him a lot of great opportunities on the racetrack. So, I mean, and then talking about a rock star, then you were in Seabiscuit. What was that like to do a film in Hollywood?
It was amazing. From the first day that I got the script and got to read it, it was such a thrill. And one of my title was race designer, so I choreographed all the racing scenes in the film. We had especially at Santa Anita, in the grandstand, the director had the special effects guys make a map of a racetrack on the floor in the grandstand. And this map was, it was probably about 6 or 7 feet long, from one turn to the other turn. It was about 6 or 7 feet. So it was a pretty good sized little map, diagram of the racetrack. And we had these little plastic horses, and we would position the horses in such a way that they would be on the track where the director wanted them to be. And then each and every scene, we only shot a segment of each scene at a quarter of a mile at a time. Okay. So we never ran more than a quarter of a mile. So it was something to see and witness a person who has the ability to reduce his thoughts to paper in the form of a screenplay, and then have him coordinate 225 people on the set daily, and then get his vision up onto the silver screen.
Right.
To see that whole thing
Amazing.
unfold was amazing. So I also, another job I had was I got on all the horses. I galloped, and I got a feel for all the horses. And Universal bought 50 head of horses.
Wow.
They bought them from places like Charlestown and Mountaineer Park and places like that, Penn National. So they were bottom of the rung,
Yeah.
you know, horses as far as talent goes.
Right.
But I had to, when he was directing me what he wanted to see in these different scenes, I had to figure out what horses were really, really quick, you know, that like they'd be in front, or what horses are just gallopers and maybe come from behind a little bit. So fast forward to the first week of November, actually last week of October, we're at Keeneland shooting the match race between Seabiscuit and War Admiral. And I was War Admiral's jockey, Charlie Kurtzinger, and Gary Stevens was, he was playing George Wolfe on Seabiscuit. So we backed up, we got on the track, and we backtracked to about the 3.5, and we waited until we heard the cue action. So we hear action, we start galloping, and we broke off around the 5/16 pole. So about a 16th of a mile before the quarter pole. And per the script, Gary looks over to me and says, "So long, Charlie." And I might add that one of the things the director was adamant about was he wanted the scenes to look realistic.
Mhm.
He didn't want anybody holding back and letting the hero win, as is the case in most racing films.
Right.
And it's kind of corny, you know?
Mhm.
So Gary Ross, he wanted the scenes to look realistic. So when he said so long, Gary said, "So long, Charlie," to me, I reached back and I hit my horse, and he put a half a length in front. I'm supposed to be getting outrun. I'm supposed supposed to lose by 4 or 5 lengths, and I got to the wire first. So we went back into the grants. Oh, mind you, it was freezing. It was 25 degrees out
No.
the day we shot this match race. So we go into a place in the grandstand at Keeneland called Video Village, where we watch the replay of the scene we just shot. And the director comes over to me and says, "What the heck?
Right.
You know, what, you know the script, right?" So yeah, I said, "Yeah, I know, but you wanted it looking realistic." I misjudged the horse I'm on. I thought he was a plotter. Anyway, so we go back out there and take 2, same result. So we go back to Video Village again. Now he's yelling at me. He's cursing and everything. Oh. And the only thing I could think to say was, "What can I say, boss? I still got it." They want to run for me. So
can't help it. You got the magic touch. I bet Gary was pissed.
He didn't like it too much. So anyway, for the third take, I used the same horse that I was on, because he's a little tired now.
Yeah.
He's already done 2 takes.
Yeah.
And so I got a different bay horse to play Seabiscuit for Gary Stevens, and we nailed it on the third take.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it was
but
it was quite the experience.
And had you retired by then?
Yes.
So what do you miss most? This is going to be my closing question to you. What do you miss most now that you're retired, Chris?
I miss going to the jocks room on a daily basis. The camaraderie we enjoyed in the jocks room out there in California was just amazing. It was really fun to go to work. Yeah. You know, we had a good group of riders, you know, back in the day, Bill Shoemaker, Fernando Toro, Don Pierce,
Eddie Delahousie,
Sandy Hawley, Daryl McCarron back in the day. And we had a wonderful time in there. You know, it's funny because we're friends, right? A lot of us played golf together on our days off. But it's a different story when the bell rings.
Fierce competitors. Yeah, that is amazing. And it just speaks again to how the racetrack is built on that family ethos. So yeah, everybody comes together and enjoys each other and then competes like hell in the afternoons. And I think it's amazing. So we are going to now, thank you, Chris. It's been honestly such a pleasure to be spending time with you after all these years.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know you have to hop off in 15 minutes. So if you have to leave and can't give us your Derby picks, do you want to give us one now?
Well, the way I look at the Derby is, if I'm asked the question, I analyze it as, who would I want to ride? If my agent came to me and said, here's 5 horses, which of these 5 would you want to ride? And it would be Fierceness, because of the way he won the Florida Derby. It was just amazing. He's got a lot of speed. Sierra Leone was really impressive in the bluegrass here at Keeneland. He overcame a real serious speed bias. Everything that was winning on the dirt at Keeneland that day was up front. You know, they were in the first flight. So he overcame a tremendous speed bias, had the race wide, really wide, turning for home, and he just wore them all down. He was very impressive. So he's going to be come running with a flurry. But if I had to go with who I wanted to ride, it would be Fierceness. I also want to throw out a bit of a long shot, Mystic Dan. Okay. I really like the way he won the Southwest at Arkansas, at Oaklawn in Arkansas. I don't think he ran his best race in the Arkansas Derby, so I look for him to bounce back and be tough in there too.
And that is such a typical thing for a racetracker to do, because whenever you ask my dad, who do you like? He'll give you 2 or 3. They'll all hit the money, but he won't tell you in which order. So thank you for those 3 picks. All right, we're going to let you go. We're going to have Ellen hop on now. And if you can come back, we'll see you. If not, mwah, thank you. Hi, Ellen.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. So Ellen Patrick is the leading female handicapper in the United States. So I'm going to have her tell you what a handicapper is, what she does to decide how to pick a horse in a race, and all that kind of fun stuff. So the way I pick a horse is, if it's a gray horse, it's my favorite. If I like the silks, the owner's colors, and they're pretty, that's also my favorite. If back in the day, if the jockey was cute, that was also my favorite. So my handicapping sucks. So we're going to let Ellen, the leading female handicapper, tell you how to do this. And we're going to put up some of her picks here in a minute. So Ellen, what do you do? What's a handicapper?
So basically, handicapping is the art of predicting the outcome of a race using certain data. A little different, of course, than my first wager years ago, back in my early 20s, when I picked a horse, my first $2 win bet ever, 75 to 1. And I picked the color of the jockey silks, right? And my husband, at the time, he had passed away, but he had said, how did you pick that horse? And I said, well, I love the color of the silks that the jockey was wearing. And he said, do you really want to start winning at the track? And I said, yes. And he said, here's the daily racing form. I'm going to teach you how to read the daily racing form. You're actually going to learn how to try to pick a winner. And I thought, okay, it can't be that hard, but it actually is complicated. So, but it's exciting.
So how do you do it?
Well, a couple things. So in my instance, in addition to the daily racing form, which I still do look at, a long time ago it was paper. Now everything is electronic. But I look at quite a few things. I look at who the jockey is that's riding on the horse. That's important. I look at who the trainer is. I think that's extremely important. I look at the racing history of the horse and the pedigree. Some people look at pedigree a lot. But it is important. For instance, in this upcoming Derby, we've got some really great horses that are, have their kids basically are running right in the Derby. Another key item for me is actually pose position of what the horse is, where they're running.
That hasn't been published yet for the Derby, so you're going out on a limb with some of these, not knowing.
Yes, no, that's exactly.
Derby too is hard because sometimes there's a field of 20 horses, which is unusual for racing. For the Derby, it's long, but that's huge how they funnel in and go down this. So it's got to be hard.
Absolutely. So just a little background on the Derby for those that don't know. It is the first leg of what they call the Triple Crown. race. And so it's followed by the Preakness Stakes and the Belmont Stakes. It's always the first Saturday in May. And I've always followed the Derby because my birthday is either on the Derby or right around the Derby. So I either celebrate with people or I go to the racetrack. I even one year threw a huge big Derby birthday party. It
Oh,
was
fun.
fabulous.
That's
So I've
amazing.
always incorporated the Derby into my birthday or my birthday into the Derby, however you want to say it.
Mhm.
It's called the greatest 2 minutes in sports. And it's called the greatest 2 minutes in sports because it takes about 2 minutes to run the track. The distance is very long. It's 1.25 miles, 10 furlongs, which is most, it's longer than a lot of the other races, but you're exactly correct. 20 horses. The horses, they call it the road to the Derby. So the horses have to race and they have to earn points to race into the Derby. And one of the important things is usually speed dominates the race. So you've got to look at that. And in addition to the speed, you've just got to look at the track conditions. Is it going to rain the day of the Derby? There's so many things that go into that. I actually play on the NHC Tour. So that is with the NTRA, which is the National Thoroughbred Racing Association. And they have what they call a handicapping tour. So think of it like someone that plays golf. They play in the FedEx Cup and they play all year and they earn points. And we earn points during the year to try to get to the championship, which is in Las Vegas every year. I just got back from the championship, unfortunately not in the money. My claim to fame, what makes me a popular handicapper is there's a pre-contest the day before the big 3-day contest. It's called the Last Chance, First Chance. And I'm actually the only female in the history of the contest, probably 20 years, to ever win that prize money. Now, it's really hard to handicap. I mean, everybody's got their own opinions because really that's what handicapping is. It's someone's opinion, and you can be right sometimes, and then sometimes you're not right. To give you an example of how hard it is, this NHC Tour, we just had the 25th anniversary, and there's never been a repeat winner. So that's staggering, right? In 25 years. And there's only been one female to win that contest. She's a legend. She's a friend of mine. Her name is Judy Wagner. And she's an incredible horse handicapper. And we had 765 players in that entries in that contest, and 24 were women. So again, you've got an area of horse racing that is still male dominated, but females are coming in, right, to their own. Yes.
Well,
So
no, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so I actually play in contests online and then sometimes at tracks. I did have an opportunity, by the way, to go to Del Mar back in August. Your dad, of course, he's a legend. And he,
as he would say, in his own mind.
No, he truly is. And the stories he gave myself and a couple friends of mine a backside tour, which was extremely interesting. At 7 a.m. in the morning, but I was all up for it because it was super exciting. And he told some stories. He talked about Chris and the Breeders' Cup and Alphabet and, toppling down the 2-time Horse of the Year Cigar. I mean, that's historic and legendary. And just to hear the stories from him, is amazing.
Alan,
so I know.
Picks, Ellen.
Yes. Okay. So I want to give my disclaimer on the picks. I want to also talk real quick about wagering. Some people just make a $2 win bet, place bet first and second. I bet exotics, which is either an exacta first and second, trifecta first, second, third, or my favorite actually is superfecta first, second, third, and fourth. And there's also daily doubles. And so people can go, whether you do a mythical wagering or a pool amongst your group of friends, if you're having a derby party, or if you go to the track, or if you bet online, all the different types of wagering it's different depending on someone's preference. I have provided my preliminary Derby picks, and I'm saying they're preliminary because, as you mentioned, the post positions have not been drawn yet. Those post positions won't come out until April 27th. That could change some of my thinking.
So your
and
first
I
breed
do-
we have up right now is the Oaks.
Oh, yes, for the Oaks, yes. So let me talk to you about the Oaks. So for those that don't know, the Kentucky Oaks is those are the races that are the day before, the Friday before the Derby. And it is the fillies, the female horses that run. And I've got 3 picks for the Oaks. And again, I put the name of the horse up there and also who the trainer was. So the first horse, the Tarifa, I think is how you say it. I'm not sure. Brad Cox is the trainer, and that horse has gone 3 for 3 this year, and I think could be a really good pick. Leslie's Rose is a Todd Pletcher horse. He's a great trainer. And then just FYI, not only is Bill Mott a great trainer, but this horse is the daughter of Justify. So that's important to me, right?
I'd agree.
Now, I also have 2 long shots on here. Jody's Pride is the daughter of American Pharaoh. To me, that's another important item. And then Into Champagne. So those are my tentative picks, which could change. And I'd like to caution the people to not only look, we've already had 1 scratch out of the Derby. Somebody, one of the horses had an injury. So you've got to watch between now and the time the Derby starts. You've got to listen and, find out, is there anything going on with the horse that could, affect how they run and different items. So
now we have your Derby picks up.
Yes, Derby picks. Okay. So interesting enough, the horse that Chris McCarron said that he would ride, Fierceness, is not on there. And I'll tell you why. Fierceness is in the top, and Fierceness is going to be the favorite. Absolutely. It's a Todd Pletcher horse.
Favorite's never been the Derby.
But the thing of it is, this horse, Fierceness's horse racing has been inconsistent. So I actually tossed him. Now, if I have an exotic, I'll probably include him somewhere in my exotic wagering. But I really, really like Sierra Leone, which Chad Brown's the trainer. That horse had a great last race. Hoping the horse can have another good race, but you don't know. And then Catching Freedom by Brad Cox, even though it's my understanding he could use some more training and gate training from what I hear. But I think if that horse can get loose, he could win. There's another horse that's not on my list that you're going to hear a lot about, Forever Young. It's a horse from Japan. I didn't put that horse in my Derby picks. I don't know if it's going to be too much hype or not. I just have to keep listening. But I do have some long shots that I've listed up there too. I'm really big on Resilience by Bill Mott. The horse had a really nice victory in the Wood Memorial. And then my favorite long shot actually is Track Phantom, Steve Asmussen horse. He always works with world-class horses. Curlin, Gunrunner, those were some of his horses. He does a really good job. And
awesome. Well, thank you for those
opinions, right?
Yeah, of course. And we're going to ask Zoe and Jeff and Chris, if he's still there, to come back on and get their picks and final words, because our time is almost up. I can't believe it. I think Chris went to his grandson's baseball game, so we'll give him that.
So one other thing, while they're getting their cameras on, I do want to say that post positions matter. And I wanted to tell everybody that the number 1 and the number 5 post position have been the most winning post positions, followed by the 4, 8, and 10. That's an interesting piece of historical data. And the 2 post positions that have never had a winning horse in the history of the 150-year-old Derby is post positions 17 and 19.
I never knew any of that. That is really something to factor in there. Thank you for those tidbits. All right, Jeff.
I looked up some data, right?
Well, good for you. Yeah, you prepared for this. Thank you. All right,
Sure.
Jeff, who do you say?
You know, I really probably going with some favorites here, but I like Sierra Leone. He had a little bit of trouble getting in the gate. He was acting up, but I'm sure Chad Brown will be working on that over the next couple of
Who
weeks.
rides him?
I believe Tyler Gaffleone rode him, and he was very patient. He just kept waiting and waiting for him to finally go in the gate. But he's got such a
scary.
long stride, and he was just gobbling up the ground coming down the stretch. And like Chris McCarron mentioned, it was a track bias that day where speed was holding all day long, and he
Yeah.
came from the back of the pack. So it is going to be tough to come from the back in a 20-horse field, but
Ugh.
boy, that horse is talented. So I hope he gets a good draw. I like Fierceness as well, mostly because he's tactical. He has run, maybe his subpar race was off the layoff, but his Breeders' Cup race and his Florida Derby were really good. So I don't think Todd wanted him to peak too soon. So I'm sure he's going to get him ready. And then Forever Young, the Japanese horse, that's going to round out my top three. And that horse is undefeated. He's coming over. It is a big ask to come over after being in Dubai and coming over to run in this race. But, you know, Japan has been knocking on the door. They run really well. And from what I'm hearing, he shipped into Kentucky good. And
Good.
we'll see how it goes.
All right, Zoe.
I'm a California girl through and through, especially because the two California horses in both the Kentucky Derby and Oaks this is Phil Diamato's first Kentucky Derby, and it's gonna be Val Brinkerhoff's first Kentucky Oaks. So obviously for the Derby, I like Stronghold, but like my dad, I like Forever Young. I was actually just texting him, telling him that Forever Young's mom was a stakes horse out here in California, Forever Darling. So that would be cool to see. And then obviously the Brinkerhoffs, they're a smaller, another family oriented barn where I think it'd be super cool to see them win the Kentucky Oaks.
All right, we are at our time, and I totally forgot to put my Derby hat on. So disappointed in myself. Any parting thoughts, questions that you want to think people should know about from each of you? Thank you so much for your time, but this has been for our family business and other audience. So any parting words on the family of racetracking?
Well, the only thing I would say is two quick things. If some of your viewers could go to the races, if they go to the paddock and see the interaction and the horses walking around the ring, they'll get to see how fit they are, how their coats look, and their muscle tone. It's tremendous. These top horses, they look phenomenal. And the other thing is, if you can ever go to one of your local racetracks and go out to morning workouts, I think you'll really enjoy that. You know, grab a cup of coffee, go out in the cold weather and see these horses train in the morning. I think those are two things that people that don't get to go to the races all the time, if they could go to the paddock and see them up close, and they could go to morning workouts, I think they'd really enjoy themselves.
I absolutely agree. What about you, Chris? What is your parting thoughts here for us today?
My parting thoughts are, well, first of all, let me mention something. Your father put me on my 4,000th winner and my 6,000th winner.
No way, that's amazing.
Yeah, do you remember a nice mare called Andestein?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. She was my 6,000 winner. She won the, it was either the Hawthorne or the Vanity.
How fun.
Park, yeah. Okay,
now, you too.
Getting back to the women in racing, Jane Goldstein was the director of publicity at Santa Anita for many, many years, actually decades. And then Shannon Bishop Arvin is the current president at Keeneland. And she has strong family ties in the business. Her father ran Keeneland many, many years ago. Her father, Buddy Bishop, was very much involved with racing both here in Kentucky and Arkansas. And so she's a lawyer by trade, and she worked her way up the ranks, and she was elected president at Keeneland about 2 years ago. So
thanks for sharing that, Chris. I appreciate it. Zoe, what are your parting thoughts? Besides how fabulous my hat is.
I do love the hat. I mean, along like with what my dad said, I mean, a lot of people don't, when they see horse racing, they tend to not really understand it. So I would honestly say the best thing to do is go to your local track, kind of just see the going ons, and it'll change your mind on what you think about racing.
Change your life, right? And Ellen, your parting thoughts for us.
Well, I agree with
Hi, Chris.
everyone else. I mean, we've taken our family out to the track. It's a great bonding time for families, for tracks that are run by families and people that make you feel like family. When people make a wager, I think that they should not only bet the favorite, but they should pick a long shot. If someone, an example is Rich Strike, the $2 that they bet to win on Rich Strike paid $163 on a $2 bet. So don't just go for the favorite, pick a long shot and try to cash in and have a fabulous Derby day.
Thank you all so much. Alan, did you want to pop back in and say anything, or are we just ending it here? But thank you. This has been so much fun.
Quick thank you to everyone. This met my dream of what this conversation was going to be. We'll be sending out Ellen's picks. We'll be sending out a sound version of the 1987.
It's more fun hearing Chris call it.
Yeah, it was kind of great. And we'll see you for the next Family Business Center webinar series.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Well,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.